Today, I'm sitting down with Paul Roberts, a true visionary and the co-founder of Taalk.AI, an advanced conversational AI platform that's changing the game for customer engagement across industries. Paul's journey is one for the books. He founded and led several successful companies, securing over $130 million in funding to drive innovative tech and marketing projects. His contributions from building AI-driven fraud prevention tools at Kubient to leading transformative ventures in various sectors highlight his talent for spotting new opportunities, building standout teams, and guiding companies to market leadership. In this episode, Paul shares his perspective on the future of conversational AI and his commitment to ethically accessible technology and the hard-learned lessons from scaling disruptive ventures. Whether you're deep into AI, an entrepreneur, or just curious about where digital marketing is headed, this conversation will be packed with insights you don't want to miss. So let's dive into Paul's incredible journey on the AI-powered marketing show.
Welcome to the digital marketing revolution. This is the AI-powered marketing show, where the future of marketing is not just imagined, it's already here. Are you an entrepreneur, a digital marketer, or a tech enthusiast? Then you're in the right place. Every day, we explore the cutting-edge tools that help you manifest and monetize your expertise through the power of funnel hubs supercharged with artificial intelligence. Unlock the secrets of turning your expertise into a digital powerhouse. From actionable insights to transformative strategies, we've got you covered. Now, let's dive into the world where AI meets marketing, where ideas meet execution, and where you meet success. Your journey to marketing mastery starts here. Here's your host, Keith Bell, bringing the future of marketing to you today.
Hey everybody, welcome back. And I'm here today with Paul Roberts, co-founder of Taalk.AI. And I'd like everybody from the AI Powered Marketing Show to join me in welcoming Paul to the show. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, Keith. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. So we connected on LinkedIn, and I was really enthralled with your product, and you sent me some demos and everything. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what Taalk.AI is?
Sure. So Talk is a conversational AI platform that helps brands really engage with their customers, all powered by AI. So right now, we do about 70% of outbound phone calls, about 30% is inbound. So the outbound is really focused on, two big things: confirming intent and availability. When you think about what AI can do, it's not closing sales, it's not going through a huge sales cycle. It's basically saying, hey, Keith, I saw you're interested in auto insurance. Do you still have that 2024 Toyota? Would you like to speak to an agent? And then we're obviously handing that call off. And then for the 30% or so of inbound calls, it's really that tier one level support. We're fully built on an open API, so we can connect directly into a CRM system. We could see, Keith comes in, we could recognize you from your phone number, look at your account, look at your policy, and help answer questions. We don't do any sort of advice or consulting. It's really we're confirming information. I'd like to add somebody to my policy. How do I do it? We text you a link to do that. How do I change the VIN number of my automobile on my policy? We text you a link to do that. We're obviously relying on humans to do most of the heavy lifting and any sort of consultative work.
Now, did I see you just did? You presented. Has it happened yet at Global InsurTech?
We did. We got invited to their conference on their main stage to really show, what AI agents are capable of. I think one of the biggest challenges with AI as a whole is everybody thinks it's everything for everybody. We basically were able to present the use case for the insurance vertical to show what we believe is the best use case for insurance. And like I said, it's that frontline entry level type, things that need to be done. Reaching out, confirming policy information. Hey, Keith, just letting you know that your policy is up for renewal in 30 days. Can I schedule an appointment with your agent? Things like that, where you might have 4 or 5 interns, you might have people offshore making those phone calls, but AI can very easily handle that.
Now, what are some of the other verticals that you're pursuing with Taalk.AI?
Obviously, insurance is a big one, but we also have a significant amount of clients in the home services industry. We also do a decent amount in fintech, where again, it's a lot of that level one support. We also have a few clients in the automotive space, and where we're starting to see an interesting amount of interest is in the legal space. So you have a lot of attorneys who are trying to follow up and just keep cases moving. They need paperwork, they need signatures. This is something very easily done by AI, especially when you take into consideration that we can connect directly into CRM systems. We can see when things need to happen. So if we're waiting on your signature and it needs to be done by this Friday, we could reach out a couple times this week, make sure you have the DocuSign. We could resend it if you'd like, all done, with no human intervention.
Now, the agency that I started, we do a lot of work with integrative and functional healthcare practitioners. Could this potentially be something that, like, the medical field, could benefit from as well, like appointment reminders, stuff like that?
We're actually in process right now of building out some AI agents for a home care agency. So what
Okay.
they're doing is twofold. One is they're obviously scheduling appointments for people to come and visit in home. So they're basically scheduling the nurse visits. And then on the back of the house, we're actually helping the agency with communication with the nurses to ensure that they understand where their appointments are, who they're going to be seeing, any sort of information or background on the patient. So I think there's a huge opportunity within healthcare because there needs to be such a transfer of information on a regular basis with patients. And my co-founder was very heavily involved in a company that was touching a lot of HIPAA compliant data. So we've gone down that path to begin getting our HIPAA compliance in order.
Yeah, that was one of the. I was just going to ask you about that. That's one of the challenges that I've had to deal with is everything I do in terms of automations,
Sure.
or it has to be HIPAA compliant, and it's a lot of headaches in some respects. So, what got you motivated to start Talk AI?
Yeah. So interesting story. My co-founder Derek is a former professor at UNC Charlotte. He was teaching large language models and computer science, and he left academia to start his own company. He had exited his company, and his 1 year non-compete was coming up, and he was working on some things with conversational AI. And one of my investors in my prior company said, I want you to meet this guy. He flew him up to New York. We sat around a table in New York City, maybe had a couple drinks, and he was showing me what he's working on. I said, I cannot believe how far this has come. This is just incredible how fluid the conversation was. And my thinking was, if we can help solve a lot of those outbound, because I think after COVID, you saw a lot of companies struggling to get people back into call centers, back into those entry level positions. So initially, we were looking at customer support, customer service, and some of the introductions we had were with people who are doing a lot of outbound calls. And the beauty, Keith, was as we were having those meetings, people were saying, when can we use it? When can we use it? When can we use it? So that was very positive for us. And this was only early 2024. So the company's only really been operating since January of this year. And once we saw those early wins, if you will, with some of our customers, we saw our first client go from 500 phone calls an hour to about 3,000 phone calls per hour. And we knew right there, we're like, okay, we have something here.
Yeah, you got something
Yeah.
there. Yeah, that's when you get that big grin on your
Right.
face.
Yeah. It's, because again, it's, I've been an entrepreneur the bulk of my life. We always have these great ideas, but until you put it into practice and somebody actually will take out their credit card and pay you to use it, it's
Yeah, that
nothing more than an idea.
Paul, what recurring industry challenges do you see your industry facing?
Sure. I think what we're seeing a lot of is just a little bit of confusion about the regulations. I think the government is obviously rushing to catch up with a lot of the AI developments. The FTC, the FCC, they're really trying to get their arms around it. My personal hope is that they don't, in a rush to kind of figure this out, overregulate it. I think we're at a very exciting time in what companies are building and developing. But we're constantly staying on top and using our law firms and our connections to understand what's coming down the pipeline. You're going to see both at a federal and a state level a lot of regulations coming, but I think they're all positive. Other than that, I think you're seeing a lot of companies trying to struggle of where to use AI and where to use it and deploy it successfully. We get a lot of interesting inquiries where companies, to be quite frank, are not ready, or nor could they really use AI to help grow their business. Where we see a lot of success is if somebody already has a process and a procedure in place, and we can insert AI to help their human team be more impactful, and obviously scale. So I think it's really twofold for us. It's the legal side of it, which we're always staying on top of and making sure that our compliance team is aware of anything coming, and then really just helping educate new companies and clients of ours of what is possible with AI.
Now, have you been following any of what's going on in California with their I forget the Senate bill, but I was surprised to see that Gavin Newsom actually vetoed it.
Correct.
Which and I just did a 3 podcast episode on this, and I think his main, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but his main thing was that he was kind of expressing that same sentiment that um, we were rushing too fast into establishing this, and he wanted to see more innovation because obviously California's got all the big tech
Sure.
companies out there.
Yeah,
So
it's obviously they're concerned about upsetting a lot of their corporate residents, but at the same time, I think he's pretty spot on where you need more information to understand, the use cases that you're trying to regulate. And things are moving at such a fast pace. I don't think they really have their arms around that yet. We always want to protect the consumers and the citizens of the US, where I think the FCC is doing it well, where they're kind of saying, how can this be used to potentially impact consumers? But I think just the overarching, you know, California, I think if that went through, they would have really ruffled a lot of feathers with a lot of the companies out there. I think a state like Colorado is looking at this correctly also, where let's put some guardrails around what we're going to allow AI to do today, and let it kind of evolve.
yeah,
Colorado is kind of saying, all of the models have to be regulated, they have to be supervised, and they also cannot use any of the data into their large language models to make any sort of biased decisions. So I think that's the right way to look at it. And I think Colorado did it right. I think California is doing it right, and I think luckily they're ahead a lot of the states on these topics.
yeah.
So I think hopefully everybody will kind of look at them as the barometer.
Yeah, and I think once they get it right, you'll start to see other states kind of model
Correct.
what they're doing because I mean, they've got all the big tech companies, and they've got I forget who is consulting Gavin Newsom, but she's one of the leading experts in artificial intelligence and ethics.
Yep.
Um, we talked a little bit about government regulation. What are some of the I know that you have to deal with do not call
Sure.
and things like that. But what are some of the other regulations that you have to like struggle a little bit with?
It's regulations that have been out for a long time, so most of our corporate partners already have a very good understanding of these rules. But you talk about the TCPA rules. Obviously, you need full consent to contact any of the consumers, whether it's a human on the other end of the line or AI. The FTC had to rush, earlier in the year and put something in place where AI is now in that same category of a human dialer, because you had a couple companies unfortunately trying to bend the rules and using AI to cold call and spam call, if you will. And they said, well, we're not human, there's not humans
Yeah,
dialing, so we don't have
yeah,
to follow these rules. So the FTC, rightfully so, very quickly put something in
yeah,
place and said, AI has to adhere to those same rules. So very
yeah.
similar. And we have built into our platform the full FTC do not call list, along with the TCPA rules and the guidelines of when those calls can be made.
Yeah, it's always as I told you before, I was a police officer for 25 years. It's always the bad actors
Yeah,
that screw it up for everybody else because and then you wonder like why don't you just like figure out you're that smart you're that smart to figure out how to do this. Why don't you figure out something
sure.
like legit to do?
And there's
So
no sustainability. You look at these guys, and it's never, it just, I get it.
they're yeah, they're going from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
Um so how do you know when to launch a new venture, like building Talk? Like I know you've launched a couple other companies, but how do you know in your mind when you're ready to go?
One of the hardest things is trying to figure out product market fit. Understanding number one, is this something people actually want to pay for? And how do you understand, how, because again, if you're not being paid for it and it doesn't scale, in my opinion, it's a hobby. Hobbies are good, but you can
Yeah,
see from my wall here, I have a lot of mouths to feed, a couple kids, a wife,
yeah,
and a family. So
I'm gonna pay the mortgage.
correct, correct. So for me, it was really about, we have this idea and you don't want to go, spend too much resources, too much time and money building something until you get validation. So my thinking always was, okay, I have this great idea. Let me go talk to the consumer who would eventually pay me for this. So I reached out to some people that I knew and said, okay, I understand you have a large call center in Utah. What are your costs? How do you pay for that? What are the metrics that matter to you? And then going back to our team at Talk and kind of saying, is this something we could replicate? So, almost getting that product market validation before we go too far, expend too much energy and resources and money, and then slowly build out features. You don't want to obviously build too many features that people don't really need. So it was really those early adopters to understand, what is it that they need within this platform. Obviously, we heard a lot about compliance and scalability. How many phone calls and how many messages can we handle at a time, along with how do I ensure that my legal team and my general counsel is going to sign off on us using this.
So what are like with your business model? What are some of the metrics that you look at and you evaluate to kind of make decisions going forward?
So from a product standpoint, it's really, how many people need this and is this something that we see, can we future proof our platform by having this built when others don't? And then from a client standpoint, we have a lot of metrics built into our dashboard so that they could very easily understand whether or not our AI agents are successful or not. It's how many connected calls have they had? What is the campaign goal? What's your KPIs? Is it transferring your calls to a human? Is it scheduling calendar invites? Is it getting support tickets closed out? So all of this could be tracked within our platform. Because again, we always want an easy conversation at the end of the month when you have to
Hmm.
build a customer. And you could easily point to, okay, well, Keith, your metric was you wanted new podcast guests. We got you 5,000 of those. Are you happy? Yes, great. We're
Yeah.
sending an invoice. So
So it's kind of customer specific then, but you've kind of built, all these different metrics in so that and there's standard metrics that everyone's going to want to look at. Like, for me, I look a lot at opt-in rates, conversion rate, things like that. So,
we're the same. So for us, most of our customers are trying to qualify a lead and then transfer it to a live human. That could be insurance, like I said, a couple verticals, automotive, home services. Do you need a new roof? Do you need new siding? Yes. Can we have somebody come out and give you a quote? That's a success metric for them. So we could track all of that in our platform. Connecting and integrating into their CRM is a very helpful piece because we can kind of close that loop of what happened after we handed off that phone call.
now what CRMs do you connect to?
Excuse me. So we've done integration so far into about 14 CRMs. We've done HubSpot, Pipedrive, Salesforce, another smaller one called Go High Level, which seems to be gaining in popularity.
How
So
about ClickFunnels?
we have not done ClickFunnels yet. We haven't had that request yet, but for
Yeah.
us, as long as there's an API and it's relatively, it's 2024, so most every CRM has an easily digestible API that we can connect into, and we go from there.
Now, did I read somewhere that you guys built your own large language model? Is that correct?
So we didn't actually start from scratch. That would be, an
Yeah.
insurmountable task at this point. But
You'd have no hair left.
correct, correct. I've already got all the grays to show for it. I haven't. But my co-founder Derek really looked at this and said, "Can I take the best in class and combine multiple large language models to deliver upon what we need?" So when you think about conversational AI, a lot of platforms are using a third-party large language model that's not hosted within their environment. So right now, as a human, Keith, you're listening to me talk, you're formulating a response. What a lot of platforms need to do is wait for me to finish speaking, take that voice, transcribe it into text, send that out to somebody, have them formulate a response and send it back to us. That text then needs to be transferred into a voice, and that's conversational AI. We knew that we couldn't really operate that way or else it wouldn't really sound human. So that's why you see a lot of these platforms suffer from latency issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we built out our own proprietary stack that has a variation of a large language model, but it's all done internally so that, we have a responsiveness from our AI agents we think wins us a tremendous amount of business. The first thing people hear is, or ask rather, is how does it sound, Paul? Let me hear it. Because if it doesn't sound good, it's never going to be able to help and replace any of my human workforce. But I think we win a significant amount of business there. So you add that with the focus on compliance, and we love nothing more than to answer some general counsel questions and get them comfortable of what we've built, and make sure everybody's happy there. And the scalability is another big piece. So we want to operate with folks who are able to use this technology and scale their business, not kind of tap out at hey, we're going to do 1,000 phone calls a day. We want those folks who, if this works, they're moving into different territories, they're offering different products and services, they're scaling their business using AI.
So you guys just started what, in January, you said?
Correct.
So uh, in terms of scaling, what are the key steps for your company in scaling and doing it ethically? Because
Yeah.
we've talked at great length about that.
A lot of it comes around to know your customer. So, we've been pretty fortunate. A lot of our clients have come via referrals from industry people. But we've had to really dive into, where do you get your data from? How are you sourcing your leads? Excuse me. And that's a big part for us to understand. And it's also, we feel, is a value as Talk, we could help them kind of navigate those TCPA, hey, you have to add this onto your website. You shouldn't be dialing these people. I know you are, but if you use Talk or not, here's what you should be doing. But the scalability is, for us, we're looking at almost a verticalized approach. We know there are certain industries that, they're not selling widgets on the shelf at Walmart. They can sell an unlimited amount of insurance policies. They can sell an unlimited amount of credit cards. These are industries that if this works, there's large scale. So for us, it's great to see customers who come in and start out, they're doing a few hundred phone calls an hour. We have partners now that have topped out at 40, 50,000 outbound calls per hour.
Wow, that's incredible. And it's done fast.
Correct. Correct. So there's, for us, it's just once we attach the large language model and AI agent to a new server, that just all of a sudden starts a whole new agent pool to start
Mm-hmm.
dialing. And it gets fun with us where we have almost, an unlimited variation of agents as well. So, clearly I have a New York accent. You could have a New York team, male, female, Spanish language, English language, old, young, and then have them almost compete against each other. So you could have a Chicago team, a New York team, a Florida team, a California team, all with different accents, all with different personas. And what you see is these companies are realizing, okay, middle-aged female from Chicago resonates incredibly well with an outbound call, but on customer service, they want a younger male voice, etc. So they could A/B test all these different agents to help them scale as well.
Now, do you guys, does your system score leads? Do you have a lead scoring system in place with it?
We don't necessarily score leads, but what we can do is we could do an AI analysis of the phone call. So it helps understand, the sentiment of the person, the temperature of the call. A few companies have also asked us to start using our AI to almost score their agent performance.
Mm-hmm.
They want our AI agent to stay on and kind of hear the conversation and say, Keith's doing great, but he needs to follow up or be a little more persistent when offering, this type of product.
Yeah, to a degree you're using some predictive analytics and
Correct.
sentiment analysis and things like that.
Correct.
Can you segment by audience? Like, if you have your audience, your insurance pool, can you segment that audience further down?
I'm not sure how would you, what would be the goal of the segmentation?
Well, for me, when I'm putting out messaging, if I'm talking to, this audience over here that's let's say SEO
Sure.
experts,
Sure.
and then over here we have um, you know like, we'll use your example, the insurance example. Somebody's interested in life insurance, somebody's interested in health insurance. Can your system segment them out in that respect, or is that done by the CRM of the customer?
It's more on the customer side where they're
Okay.
collecting a lot of that data. Our big ad is that we can confirm whether or not somebody's actually truly interested in the product. Where we could ask numerous questions, we could ask open-ended questions, really get a temperature from that call if the person is going to be someone who's going to buy the product, going to sign up for the service, etc. That's really more where we can get, we can almost give them an intent score as well of we think that Keith should be followed up with more because he's right there. He's right on the fence. He might need one or two more phone calls.
Hey, digital marketers, entrepreneurs, and tech enthusiasts. Ready to elevate your AI game? Check out the AI-powered marketer newsletter from Keith Bell, host of the AI-powered marketing show. The AI-powered marketer newsletter is your go-to resource, packed with actionable insights, cutting-edge tools, and the latest news in AI and digital marketing. Whether you're optimizing sales funnels, exploring new AI strategies, or staying ahead of industry trends, this newsletter has you covered. Don't miss out on the chance to supercharge your marketing efforts. Subscribe now. Just click the link in the show notes to sign up today, and remember, the future of marketing is here and it's powered by AI. See you in the newsletter.
Right. So, in terms of like sentiment analysis and intent,
Yep.
you can, to a degree, qualify lead, but that this person's more interested than this person over here. Maybe you don't call them as much, or
Correct.
and one of the big things that I keep seeing over and over again with everybody I talk with about AI is personalization.
Yep.
How much does your system personalize the messaging to the caller, or is it just like a pre defined knowledge base of questions that they ask?
Well, it's a great question because we just added a feature where we have what we call our small talk feature. So if there's any breaks in the calls, we're getting base information from our client CRM. We know Paul lives in New York. So as I'm transferring that call to a live agent, I might say something like, "Hey, Paul, I bet the leaves are changing up there in New York. How's the weather been, etc." So there is some customization in that aspect. It's really dependent on what the client asks us to do. To be honest, most of the time they just want a quick phone call, make sure that they're interested. Let's get them to a human.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of it is too, like what people understand AI is capable of doing in terms of
Correct.
hyper personalization, and but the risk is if you too hyper personalize, it comes across, I guess, as disingenuous
Correct.
and kind of phony. So
Yep.
um let me switch gears a little bit here. You've raised over $130 million, is that correct, for funding?
Correct. Both private and public fundraising. So um, typically, done a couple of friends and family rounds here and there, and then
Hmm.
I've done two Nasdaq IPOs. One was for my own company, Kubient, and a second was a special acquisition vehicle by the name of Signal Hill Acquisition Corp. So we worked with an investment bank out in San Francisco. We raised a little over $100 million for that to go out and acquire some targeted companies. To be transparent, Keith, my timing wasn't great. The SPAC market imploded on us, but for talk, I think we're in a very interesting position. My co-founder and I laughed that we might have one of the only profitable AI companies that we know of. So we're going to try to keep it that way, and try to retain as much ownership as possible and grow organically.
Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of the dot-com bubble burst. You you saw all these AI companies come out, and then OpenAI made a simple change, and it put like hundreds and hundreds of them
Yep.
out of business.
Yeah,
So
I think we even see this in the conversational AI space where every day I'm getting a Google alert. This company raised 20 million. This one raised $15 million, and we've used just every platform out there. And we're kind of scratching our head where they're using or deploying the capital. It's going to be an interesting time because I think you're going to see a lot of burnout, if you will, of companies in the space. They're just not going to get the scale or acceleration that they need, and investors want results, as you know.
They want to see that they don't care so much about what you're doing. They want to see how much it made them. That's what
Correct.
it comes down to.
Yep.
Any tips for young entrepreneurs on pitching and securing investor funds? Any good tips you can give us?
Yeah, I think in the reality is that early stage, especially when you're a little younger in your career, that investor for the most part is writing a check based on you, not necessarily the idea you have. Obviously, they want you in an industry that's going to accelerate and scale. They don't want you selling lemonade on the side of the road, but they're typically going to invest in the jockey, not the horse. So the passion has to come through. You have to have a real understanding of the industry and be able to answer just about any question, and also know your competitors very well and what's going to differentiate yourself. Because it doesn't need to be this massive shift in an industry. I've seen people kind of just solve a 5% problem that's made people hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's, have a real passion for what you're doing, let that come through. And, I think most investors will take a flyer, especially if it's not a ton of capital, on a really good operator and somebody with passion.
So I've, in one of my research tools that I use, Perplexity, and from looking at your LinkedIn profile, you've referred to Talk.AI as a Shopify for AI agents. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Sure. If you look at the Shopify model there, obviously a very, very strong contender of what they do, their core business, but they also allow a lot of companies to integrate. They allow, best in class companies. If you want to use Stripe, go ahead and use Stripe. If you want to use a different, product labeling platform, go for it. We have partners of ours. We use Twilio as our partner. Companies will come to us and say, we want to use, XYZ. We want to use a different voice agent. We want to use this, where we think our core technology around our large language models and our AI agents is really what's going to differentiate us. But if somebody wants to use a different CRM, if they want to use XYZ, we're happy to do that.
So, what do you see are as some of the big trends for conversational AI going forward?
Sure. I think, it's really going to be, where can it replace the human workforce in certain areas that, you want humans to have human relationships. I know, as corny as that sounds, but AI should take a lot of that grunt work off of their plate. The manual follow-ups, the appointment setting, things like that, I think is where, AI is going to very quickly show how powerful it could be. And then from there, I think it's only going to be the limitations of companies of how they can deploy the AI agents themselves. I think that the first tier one support is a great use case, those outbound, inbound phone calls. But again, it's not here to replace humans. It's only really going to give the humans time back to do things more efficiently and where they can have an impact on the company's bottom line.
So, with that, what kind of feedback have you gotten from like some of your clients?
I think, the feedback we've gotten so far has been incredibly positive, because we're very targeted in the companies that we're working with. Early on, we looked at a lot of different industries and we focused on ones that we know are very phone heavy. They rely on people picking up the phone, getting new customers, keeping their customers happy, keeping their customers coming back. So I think that was a smart decision on our part, where we didn't want to be everything to everybody. Where I think a lot of companies right now are saying, hey, put your credit card in, you could have an AI agent.
Right.
75-80% of companies are not ready to deploy an AI agent. They don't have the resources or infrastructure to manage that. So focusing where we are, what we're doing is we're adding a tremendous amount of value and helping those companies scale quickly.
Now, what you brought up an interesting point. What kind of infrastructure do you have to have in place for Talk.AI?
So for us, it's really, the server infrastructure is a key piece. We have an elastic server structure, where if you make 1,000 phone calls an hour now and want to scale up to 5,000, Our system will automatically call up new servers to make sure we have, the coverage and there's no deterioration of the performance. The AI needs a significant amount of compute resources. So once you kind of max out those servers, you see this on other platforms where, unless you call them up and say, hey, we need a couple more servers,
Yeah.
the response time is slow, the computes are off. So we learned that in our prior businesses where, there really shouldn't be any limitation to usage, especially if you're getting paid as people use the platform. You want them to be able to scale as rapidly and quickly as possible.
Yeah. I just did an episode on how some of the big large language models are using, or they're considering, nuclear power
Yeah.
to power their stuff. I mean, how much power? How much, like, what's your electric bill like?
Luckily, we don't pay it. We just pay Amazon and Google for their cloud services.
Yeah.
So we just get billed on that. But
Oh, so that, yeah.
I read the same where you have, Amazon building or purchasing nuclear facilities to power their large language models, which, when you really sit and think about it, it's pretty mind blowing. But
Yeah.
I think with, the state of the environment, not to get into that conversation, but I think, smart electrical, use is going to be great for everybody. And, they're looking at this long term, and obviously you look at, NVIDIA, the amount of chips they're shipping, this is not anything that's going to slow down in the near future.
Yeah. I interviewed Stefan Fair from he's from, I don't know if you know Stefan,
I know
but
the name. I don't know him personally,
but
but
we were talking about, and he agreed with me that one of the biggest barriers to the development of AI is going to be power,
correct.
because they use a tremendous amount of power. Uh, so that, Google and OpenAI, and I think even Microsoft too, are all looking at these small nuclear reactors,
Crazy.
which is a little crazy, but I guess,
Yeah.
if they can do it safely, that's great. So I want to give you the last couple minutes here to, just tell people, if they want to learn more about TalkAI, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, you could always obviously visit our website at Taalk.AI. You also have an opportunity there to create a free account. You also have the opportunity to call a couple agents, have them call you, kind of hear. Because again, I think a big part of conversational AI is you have to hear it to believe it.
Right.
A lot of people are skeptical, which we get. Everybody's got Alexa or some sort of AI assistant either on their phone, and they've heard it, and nobody could ever replace. But the technology's come so far, especially with the voices, etc. Also, you could always find us on LinkedIn. It's Paul Roberts and Derek Wang on LinkedIn, the two co-founders. We'd love to have conversations, and a lot of what we like to do is just educate folks on what AI can and cannot do. We've, I think, won a decent amount of business just helping people understand the landscape and what is possible. So happy to have any conversations. If you want to reach out, like I said, you can come to the website or find us on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Yeah, that's how I found you. I saw your company, and I sent you a
Yep.
pitch for being on the podcast, and here we are.
And here we are.
And
The
here we are.
power of LinkedIn. I love it.
I love LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. So, well, Paul, you have been a phenomenal guest. We had a couple technical glitches there, but through the power of AI, because this podcast is recorded on Conversational.AI, we'll give them a little plug.
Awesome.
I will be able to edit out those technical glitches.
Sounds
So,
good. It was a
but
real pleasure, Keith. I appreciate the time today.
oh yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Have a great day, Keith. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the AI-Powered Marketing Show, hosted by yours truly, Keith Bell. We hope you found today's episode insightful and full of actionable tips to power up your marketing strategies with AI. Don't forget to visit the website at funnelosophy.com. There you'll find links to our podcast website, as well as a subscription link to the AI-Powered Marketer newsletter. Here on our newsletter, you can stay ahead of the curve with the latest trends, tools, and tips delivered straight to your inbox. We'd love to connect with you on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Join our community of like-minded marketers. Come on by and say hello. get behind the scenes content, join the conversation, and never miss an update. Until next time, keep innovating, keep iterating, and stay ahead of the curve with the power of AI in your digital marketing efforts. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the AI Powered Marketing Show. Take care.